would keep an eye on it. So being the first time I've ever been pregnant, I believed them. Pregnancy was extremely tough on me, and I didn't understand why. I do now. I had preeclampsia, and I'm pretty sure I had it from week 13 on. But it wasn't diagnosed, and it wasn't being treated. One thing about preeclampsia that women do need to know and be aware of is that even if doctors are testing your urine to see if the proteins are there, the proteins do not always drop into your urine. And when that happens, the preeclampsia is being missed. That's when the doctors need to start paying more attention to our other symptoms. Symptoms like my high blood pressure I was having. I started swelling very early on. The swelling continued to get worse. And still, I was being told, everything is fine. Normal pregnancy symptoms. Not to worry. I continued through my pregnancy, and away from the preeclampsia that was kicking my butt, I was surviving. But mentally, I was feeling extremely weak. I kept being told I was fine, but it kept getting worse. By my third trimester, it progressed and eventually became undiagnosed and untreated Peripartum Cardiomyopathy, also known as PPCM. So now, I was undiagnosed with peripartum cardiomyopathy on top of preeclampsia, and neither were being treated. I had increased urination at night, extreme swelling from the toes all the way to my head. I'd bite my mouth at night because it was so swollen. I couldn't lay flat because I couldn't breathe. I had to sleep sitting up at night in order to even get any rest. Between the lack of oxygen and increased nighttime urination, I really wasn't actually getting rest at all. I felt miserable. Just plain horrible. My blood pressure was still through the roof, and nothing was being done. I was still being told everything was normal pregnancy symptoms. I even took a trip into labor and delivery, probably around 34 weeks long. Again, I was told everything was fine, and I was sent home as if nothing was wrong with me and that it was all in my head. Again, hearing normal pregnancy symptoms, and again, me being a first-time mom not knowing any better, I believed what they were telling me. I believed that I was making this worse than what it was. That this was just how pregnancy was, even though I was beyond miserable. Apparently, I was just a weak individual. That's how I felt. I couldn't do anything. I was in so much pain, so swollen, it hurt to walk. So swollen, like I mentioned, I was biting my mouth at night. My heart rate was racing. I was seeing my pulse bounding out of my wrists. Occasions of severe pain, pulsating pain, that would hit in my lower back, coming from my chest. It was so severe, I would literally just freeze up in pain. I couldn't move when this would happen. It was just beyond excruciating. And once again, I was told, normal pregnancy symptoms. How my son and I survived, I really couldn't tell you. It's nothing short of a miracle. Luckily, I was already scheduled for a C-section on December 18th of 2018. That was 6 days prior to my actual due date. The C-section had been scheduled not because of my pregnancy health issues. Still, I was being told I was fine. It had been scheduled because I had severe uterine fibroids. That ended up being a blessing because they took my son on December 18th. After they delivered him, he was taken from me, and I don't remember anything for at least the next half hour. I finally got to meet my son in recovery. But there was nothing normal. And the hospital, they didn't seem to care. I had extremely high blood pressure, close to 170 over 100. I was still massively swollen. None of the swelling was leaving. My oxygen numbers, they were down to the high 80s. However, they still sent me home. I asked to see my medical records before being released, knowing something was wrong. I was denied. They would not let me see them. They actually told me to go to the medical records department and pay to get them. Nothing was okay. But I was still believing this was just how pregnancy works. I must just be weak. I went home on December 21st. On December 24th, at around 6, 7 a.m., I fainted. My son's father called 911. I did awake before the paramedics arrived, and I wasn't aware that the baby that I heard crying was mine. I didn't even know that I had a son at that point. EMTs loaded me up, and I was out again. I had a massive seizure on the way to the ER. And when I got to the ER, my heart stopped. Cardiac death. I, by the grace of life, was shocked back to life. I was then intubated and in a medically induced coma for nearly a day and a half. During that time, my family had been told to start making plans. The doctors did not think I was going to survive. When I woke in the ICU room, I awoke to photos of my son with his name all over the room, because my family didn't think I was going to remember that I had a son, since I had remembered having him the morning that all this had happened. I lost around 60 pounds of fluid that first week. I was back down to smaller than my pre-pregnancy weight at that point. I had been drowning. I was drowning in my own body. All of this went undiagnosed, untreated. Nothing throughout all of it. I had to drop dead for them to finally realize something's wrong with her. I finally got to go home, still uncertain of my future. I was fitted with a life vest, and that basically just suffocated me. I had to have that on 24 hours a day. The only time I was allowed to take it off was to get into the shower, which needed to be a very quick process. The defibrillator, it was stuck very, very tightly to my heart, with large sticky pads on the front and back to shock me back to life if my heart stopped again. It would only give me a few seconds warning before going off. I couldn't even hold my newborn son for the fear of it shocking him. If it had shocked me while I had my son with me, it would have killed my son. I had to sit and watch my family take care of my newborn son for months. I'm sorry. I missed out on such an important time of bonding with my son. Time that I will never get back. My mother says that I look like a shell of a person. I just felt completely broke. Now, 3.5 years later, my heart function is back to normal. I am one of the lucky ones. I still struggle daily. I will take medication for the rest of my life. And I suffer mentally since all this happened. But I am getting there. I'm finding my voice, and I'm finding our voice. Don't be scared. Be aware. Together, we can bring awareness and beat this. PPCM is not rare. It's just rarely diagnosed. You can have all the symptoms that I had, or you can have none of the symptoms that I had. Speak up and demand your doctor to give you an NT-proBNP test. It is a simple